Welcome back to the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast. This week, I'm speaking with Jane Schildroth. Jane is a mother, grandmother, and a lifelong educator, having retired in 2014 from the University of Iowa. Her husband died of cancer in 2018, and after her recent downsizing experience, she considers herself Jane 5.0, a new operating system. I had the privilege to work with Jane at the University of Iowa years ago, and I always appreciated her leadership and guidance. In this week's episode, Jane and I discuss adjusting to life post-retirement and what her life looks like now as she pursues interests and learning new things at this stage. I've truly appreciated Jane sharing her thoughts about coping with grief and loss. I hope you enjoy my conversation with my friend, Jane Schildroth. Jane Schildroth, welcome to the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here this morning.
I'm so glad that you are here. We spent some time talking a little bit before we got started and reminiscing a lot about how we know each other. But before we get into all of that, for the listeners, could you just introduce yourself, who you are, a little bit about your family, what you're up to?
Okay. Well, I am an educator. I still consider myself an educator. My bachelor's degree is from the University of Iowa many, many years ago. And my master's degree is in counseling from the University of Northern Iowa. And that was a very good background for what I turned out to do in my career.
Yeah.
I am now retired. As in 2014, I retired.
Wow.
It's a long time ago
Great.
already.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm 75. I don't mind sharing that. I earned every bit of that.
You betcha. Absolutely.
And I have a daughter and a granddaughter who live in Cedar Rapids with me. Not with me, but they're in the same town.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah. And so I'm enjoying retirement.
I love it. Well, I have to say, we are friends on Facebook, and your granddaughter is just the cutest thing. All the adventures that you all go on, I love following along. So
she keeps things lively. I gotta say, I think she keeps me a little bit younger, and she keeps me moving. That's for sure.
I bet. I know. That's fun. I love that so much. Well, we were talking a little bit before we started recording today about how we know each other, and I had the very fortunate opportunity to work at the University of Iowa Career Center back in the early 2000s, I believe it was. And I was a career advisor in the College of Business, but worked with you in the Career Center. And for all intents and purposes, in my mind, you ran the place. You were the person that I went to. I had kind of a dotted line reporting relationship to you in the organizational structure, but to me, I felt like you were my go-to person. You were the person I went to with questions and how do I handle this situation or what do I do over here? And you were such a wealth, not just a wealth of knowledge and connections within the university. You knew who to go to. You knew who I needed to talk to if I needed to arrange a program somewhere or whatnot. But also you were just such a calming presence in what was back then a little bit of a tumultuous time. I'm not going to get into the details here, but it was just kind of a different situation there at that time. And you were just such a calming, level-headed sense of presence for those of us who were new. There was another person who started about the same time that I did. We came in together. I think we might have even started on the same day. I think we did. And so you were just someone that we knew. You were the one that we went to. You were the one that we leaned on, being new in that role. And it was so wonderful working with you. And I mean, the whole team was great, but you were definitely someone I looked to as, oh, I need to go to Jane. I need to ask Jane a question, or I need to get advice from Jane. And that was just, to a new person in a role like that, was invaluable. So.
Well, of course, it feels really good to hear that. And I remember those days and a lot of the days after that, because I'm sitting here listening to you thinking, that was kind of a theme through my career. I was not ever the top person in the Career Center, but I had to learn how to lead from beneath.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't leading with all the power.
Right. The title and all of that
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah.
But there's kind of a way to lead when you're not in that power.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has a role to play in that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Well, and you did it very well. You did it very diplomatically as well, because there were times I remember when you said, well, we need to check with so-and-so, the person who was the in title director. And you were very diplomatic about that. You didn't ever try to circumvent or, not go through the proper channels on all of that sort of thing. But at the same time, we knew where the wisdom was, and that was with you. So it just made that time very enjoyable, very productive, and just fun. And yeah, so I appreciate that.
I think, upon retirement, I look back, of course, on all of those times, and I think, I loved my work. I really, really enjoyed it. Even with all of those times of tumult, as you mentioned.
Right.
I really, really enjoyed it. But at the time when I retired, I took a phased retirement. So it was
Okay.
3 years.
Okay.
And I said the day of my retirement party, they threw a great party.
Oh,
for me.
I love it.
I said, it was probably at least a year too long, because when you start stepping out, people start treating you differently.
Mm-hmm.
And that went on for 3 years. And so it was just a little bit less time each year for those 3 years. But when I was leaving, I was ready to leave. I was ready to move on, leave everything there. I'd given it what I had, and it was time to do something else.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that when they retire, they don't really feel ready, and they're looking at the future thinking, what am I going to do? So the fact to hear that you were ready, it was time, and that the phased retirement kind of served its purpose, and you're like, nope, I've done what I needed to do here, and I'm ready to go. I think there's a lot of peace in that, a lot of solace in that you can leave and look back and, I came and I did what I needed to do and left a great legacy in my career, and I'm moving on.
Well, and I had the opportunity with that phased retirement to have extra time in Cedar Rapids to get involved in some things, so I could transition more easily, because working in Iowa City and living in Cedar Rapids made it a little difficult to be involved. So, my gardening is a big thing in my life, and so the master gardeners were an important part of that. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that so much. So we've talked a little bit about retirement, and you talked about phased retirement and some of the adjustments that you've made. What about retirement? What have those transitions been like? What has that been like to say, I'm going into the office every day, 5 days a week, and sometimes more, evenings, weekends, and then some, traveling, all the things you were doing, and then slowly finding yourself transitioning? What was that like during that period of time? How did that go for you?
Well, the last 10 years of working, I was traveling a lot on behalf of the Career Center all over the country. And my husband had retired by that point. And so the office paid for me, I paid for him, and off we went. So California, New York, Texas, Colorado, every place in the Midwest, all over.
Love that.
So he was always ready to go with the drop of a hat, But
tell me where, I'll pack my bag,
exactly.
ready to go.
He called himself my Sherpa, because he was always carrying my bags.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
so that was kind of intense. And so I think that probably helped me when it was time to retire. I didn't have to be gone so much.
Right.
That causes a lot of stress, that kind of travel. So from that standpoint, it was really easy to back away from that. But as I said, I was having a lot of appointments. I was having meetings. I was going off to do volunteer things. So I wasn't really at a loss for what to do with my time. I didn't experience that. I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I have a friend who tells me she feels like she just needs more to do. She doesn't have a busy enough life.
Right.
And so she's looking for things. Right. Now, it's taken me this long to get to the point where I'm actually kind of jettisoning some things and focusing more and more on what it is that's important to me.
You bet.
I know, sometimes we say yes to things, and And then we wonder later, why did we, why
Yeah.
did we do that?
Oh, yeah. That happens a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I started practicing how to say no and
Mm,
not at this time.
love that.
So I have changed some of my responsibilities just in the last few months. And it really feels like I'm more centered. I'm not
Love
quite
that.
as scattered as doing all of these things and kind of resenting that I had to do them.
Right.
Why live like that? That's
Right.
crazy.
No.
So yeah, I have, in fact, well, part of what happened was my husband passed away
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago
Mm-hmm.
in 2018, and kind of since then I've started to look at myself as Jane 5.0.
I love that.
This is a different operating system.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love that.
It's not the same as when I was a kid. It's not the same as when I was in college and when I was a young professional. All of these different stages, I mapped it out. Anyway, I figure this is the fifth 5.0.
I love that, Jane. That is fantastic.
And a lot of that has been simplifying my life. And as I said, some of the responsibilities that I had taken on, I was able to shift those around. And that opens up space in my brain and in my heart for things that are really more meaningful to me. And so part of that this summer, then I downsized my home.
Yes.
So that's a real process. I would have not predicted that upon retirement, that at this point I would be living in a much smaller space, but it's about 1,000 square feet instead of over 2,000 square
Right.
feet. And it's just what I need. It's the space I
Perfect.
need. So anyway, that's all been a process and part of Jane 5.0.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. Jane 5.0. I think that is such a powerful way to think about our lives, almost in versions, in chapters, and to think about this stage for you as being, I retired, I got super busy, filled my time, and realized, gosh, I don't need to be go, go, go in this stage. I can pick and choose the things that I really want to devote my resources to, my energy to, my heart to. That is it feels really empowering to me. Like you have a choice. I think sometimes when we're running around and we are in the workplace full time or whatever that part of our life looks like, our time isn't ours really, right? We need to be here at certain places and certain times. And then all of a sudden our time kind of does become ours again. How do we want to fill that time? And I do think a lot of people as they approach retirement are concerned about, wow, what am I going to do? Or what did I like to do before this? Or are there new things I want to try? And they stress about that a little bit. And so maybe some people, they feel like they have to fill it with 1,000 different activities and groups and volunteering and different things. But it sounds like you've now realized like, yeah, that was okay for a bit, but that's not how I want to do Jane 5.0. I want to have my time back a little bit.
Well, and this opens up time for me to spend with Ava,
Yes.
my granddaughter. And, I know she's 8. She's not going to want to hang with Grammy for a long, long time because that'll change.
I know.
And so I'm going to try to savor these moments. Yesterday after church, we packed a lunch, a picnic, and we went out to the nature center. And we just poke around because it was a beautiful day.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, I wouldn't give that up for anything.
Absolutely not.
So
It's the best.
nothing to get in the way of those special moments. It's opened up time for me to spend more time at my church and do things that I feel are very important. And also through the Master Gardener program, through the Cedar Rapids Garden Club, I'm into things that mean something, that make a difference. I hope that's the idea.
That. Well, I'm sure that they are. You're absolutely right with our kids and grandkids. There's an age when they are absolutely all about grandparents or parents. And then you're right, as they age, they kind of, they get into their own activities and friends and things like that. So savoring those special moments is, yeah, I know my son is 16 and, I'm not always the cool person to hang out with now. So
Hard to believe.
I have to cajole him into, doing something with me, but I get it. It's natural. It's normal for kids that age to, mom and dad aren't the cool people to hang out with anymore. So, but I love listening to you talk about that because I think, we spend so much of our lives, working and being other places that other people tell us to be. And then it's something, when I hear you talking about this, it makes me so excited for the future and what that looks like, and that I can choose what I want to do with my time. If I want to spend time on volunteer activities, or I want to get involved in a club or something like that, I'm going to be able to do that. And it just sounds sweet. And I love that.
I think you're doing it.
I'm getting there.
You're doing a podcast.
Yes, I am. I know, this whole new thing, and I think that's another thing too, that's really been a theme for me. And I don't know if you feel this too. I'll be 50 next year, and thinking about, it's never too late, right? At 50, did I think I would be starting a podcast? Heck no, absolutely not. But I feel like and I've talked to other women, especially women. I don't know if men feel this way, but it's never too late to try something new, to try a new hobby or a new venture or a new, getting involved with a new volunteer organization or whatever. It's never too late. I don't care if you're 50, 70, 80, 90. It's never too late. I don't know if you've kind of felt that a little bit too.
Oh, absolutely. I have a hammered dulcimer, which Peter got me many, many years ago, but I have never learned to play it. And I took it in. Someone we both know from work would tune it for me.
Yes.
But I've never really learned to play it. So that's on my list. And
I love it.
I think it'll be good for a lot of reasons. I just really like music and
yes,
singing in the church choir right now. But, maybe there's just a little something else I have time to do that would be really fun.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh, you should absolutely do that. I think that's great. I love it. I love all of that. When you learn to play, you need to let me know so I can come and listen.
I was just thinking too, yesterday, our pastor in the sermon talked about the idea of you spend a lot of your life putting things into a container, like you're building skills, you're gaining knowledge and then adding experiences. And then you get to the point in your life where you can start spilling out of that container and sharing that with other people. I thought it's a really, really good image.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
If nothing else, maybe I can spill out my container once in a while.
Oh, well, I can definitely say from the time that we worked together, you were spilling out a lot out of that container for me, because I had never worked in that field, and you were just a wealth of resources and knowledge. And I can only imagine you now doing that for others and sharing that with other people. They would be blessed for that. So I love that. Is there anything that you miss about your pre-retirement life, like work-wise or like that stage? Do you miss anything about it? Is there anything that you're kind of like, oh?
This is probably cliche a little bit, but I do miss the people and the relationships that I had. A different boss, one that for whom you did not work, had the feeling that we, as administrators, shouldn't have close relationships with our staff members. And we were having a conversation about that one day, and I looked at him and I said, well, I can't change that. I have built a relationship with these people. I can't make it go away.
Right.
And I feel that he thought it was something that was going to get in the way of being an effective administrator. And there are different viewpoints on that. But the fact that I would go to lunch with some of the staff and whatever.
Oh, the horror.
Yeah.
You went to lunch with staff. Yeah. Oh, so, no, that's... We had so many great conversations over lunches, I felt like.
Right.
We'd go down to the Atlas or wherever and we'd talk work, a little shop talk, but we talked about life and just what was going on. And for me, I always got this feeling like you just cared so much about us as people first, which to me is powerful in a work setting. And it never got in the way, in my opinion, but I don't know.
Well, to me, it's what it takes to be a leader. But, like I said, everybody has a different point about that. But I do miss the people and actually just the opportunity to be exposed to new folks and make new relationships. And
absolutely.
It's made a big difference in my life.
On the other side of that, and maybe we already know that, but like, what do you not What do you not miss? What do you wake up and think, oh, thank God I don't have to go do that today? What do you not miss?
Sometimes the meetings,
Mm,
and the I think probably even more than that is the politics.
yeah.
Um, knowing that if you did this, it was going to affect this and that way, and just thinking about all of that before you walked across the street to a meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't miss that at all.
Mm-mm.
I don't actually miss all the travel that I did these last
Mm-hmm.
10 years either.
It's a lot.
That was, yeah, that got to be a lot. It was fun when we were there, but for example, you go to New York City, and for me, my husband could pack whatever he wanted to be wearing. I
Right.
had to wear my big girl clothes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and tromp
That's
around.
not fun.
And so I was working, and he was out, seeing the sights and
Right.
having a good time.
He was having some fun
Yeah.
and sightseeing. Yeah.
So, but on the other flip side of that, you had to really do your homework and be up on each company that you're visiting.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, my purpose was to talk to them about hiring University of Iowa graduates and interns. And you had to know a little bit about what you were doing. So the stimulation of all that was really good.
Yeah.
But I don't really miss the activity of getting up and
Right.
packing and, closing down everything at home so you could be gone. So,
Right. Exactly. I think it sounds exciting to someone, but then when you actually have to do it and the grind that is, it's just, oh, can I just be at home for more than a couple days at a time, please? Yeah, that can get really. So now in retirement, kind of a similar question. So what are you talked about some of the things you're loving. What's challenging, and on the flip side, what are you loving? What's been hard? What's been great?
well, I loved having the freedom to go and do, when I want to go and do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's challenging, I think, sometimes, well, particularly now that I'm living alone. I think that's challenging to keep yourself, in a mindset that's positive. And as we were talking before, I think with some of the things going on in the world, it's really tough right now. And I think if there's no one else around, you can let that really get onto
Sure.
onto your heart.
Right.
And so it's kind of a struggle to figure out how is this going to happen. So, the other night, a friend and I went to a play, and it was a farce, and it was just fun. And it was,
Yeah.
of course, it was well done. These people know what they're doing.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
looking for things that lift you up.
Lift your spirits.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that Peter passed away 5 years ago, and that you've recently downsized. Just to whatever you're comfortable with, what has that transition been like? It's so hard.
Yeah, it is very difficult. It's a club you don't want to join.
Yeah.
But gosh, it's really hard to think how to describe what it's really like. My good friend, we were friends all through elementary, high school, played basketball together, and have reconnected in the past many years. She had just lost her husband, and her going through that really brought back to me what it was like when I was going through that. But I learned that you have to really, you have to let the grief come. You have to lean into it and not try to push it aside. And that has helped me. And, all the other things that I have to think about, that helps as well. But I have really, really good memories. And so, I can laugh sometimes, and
You bet.
you just have to. And, we talked to Ava about Papa a lot.
course.
She was 3 when he died, so she doesn't really remember. But, so he's alive for us still. And I think she's going to benefit from that.
Absolutely.
I just recently had the sad situation of having to put my dog down. So
I'm
having
sorry.
a good companion we got her in the pandemic, right at the beginning of the pandemic. She was already 10. So
right. Okay.
in September when she died, she was 13.
Oh,
and I
my
had her for 3.5 years. But she was really a great companion and filled up a lot of the empty space. And I find out how much I talk to her. But
Right.
talking about I think people do look upon you a little differently. When you retire, I should back up before that. When you don't any longer color your hair, that changes. All of a sudden, I was ma'am.
Yes.
Really.
Can I help you with this door, ma'am? Can
I
I
help carry things? Is that
Yes.
okay? Is that going to be
Are
too
you
heavy
okay?
for you? Give me the bag.
I got it. I got it. I'm fine.
So, there's that. And then there's, the fact that you're retired, and then the fact that you're a widow, which is frankly a term I don't use very much. But people do tend to change how they look at you, and you sort of, fade into the background a little bit until you can figure out how that really isn't what this is all about.
Right.
You're still the same person. And,
Right.
It's more their problem than it is your
Right,
problem.
right. They're looking at your situation and feeling how they feel about it. And it's like, no, well, it's my life and I'm going to move on and I'm going to do things and not move on, but I'm going to continue to live my life and
Absolutely.
make memories and reflect back on all the wonderful times that we had. But I'm also making new memories with family and friends and all of that. Yeah, I totally agree about grief. First of all, I don't think grief is something that is talked about nearly enough. It's always been kind of a taboo subject. I feel like there's a little more coming out about grief, but it's still, I feel like we have a long way to go in terms of grief and how it affects your life and those around you and all of that. And you have to let yourself feel it. And then isn't it funny how the weirdest things will bring back, when my mom died 5 years ago, and there will be things that are so random. Like one of her favorite things to do was to go to Target, and we would go to Target and we would just look around and get a Starbucks and I will go into Target and see a mother and a daughter, clearly a mother and a daughter walking around, and it will wreck me. I mean, it will make me feel so sad, but also happy because I remember all the fun times we had, right? So you're in this limbo of, remembering happy times, but also feeling sad that you don't have that anymore. But it's weird, the things that will set you off. It's not even anything super profound, that will hit you.
We always went to the symphony together. Orchestra Iowa
Yeah.
now. And the first spring, it was time to order tickets. And Peter was alive still, but we knew it was not going to go well.
Yeah.
And one of my really brilliant friends said, Jane, get 2 tickets. Get 2 tickets. Take a friend. Well, so going to that first Orchestra Iowa concert with a friend was very difficult, but I was there and I was doing it, and her advice was wonderful. But still to this day, going to those concerts hits me hard because it was something we always did together.
Yeah.
Sometimes a fragrance will remind me
yes.
of a cologne that Peter had. And occasionally, something will happen. And sometimes it's the death of a person that we knew. And
Right.
I want to just turn and tell him, I want to talk to him because he's the only one who would really understand.
Right.
And my girlfriend, who I just mentioned, has lost her husband. She's having that right now. Things are happening, and she'll say, "Oh, Steve would really enjoy that. Oh, I got to tell Steve." And it's just starting to sink in.
Yeah.
She can still tell him. But,
Right. That you can't, they're not physically there to tell, but you can still, hey, guess what? Look at this or whatever. And I think is a fear of a lot of people who have lost someone, is that their memory, their presence, who they were, will be forgotten, And I one of the things that's helped me, you were talking to Ava about Peter. My son was very close to my mom, and he talks about her a lot. And as hard as that is for me sometimes, I know that it's important for him to be able to share memories of grandma. But it's also helpful for me because it reminds you, and they're not forgotten, right? And you can say their name and you can remember them and the pleasant times, that you had with them. And that's important.
Well, people, I think, are afraid to bring things up. People would be hesitant to say something that they remember that made them laugh about Peter or that they thought about him. And what they need to know is that does me so much good.
Absolutely.
Because exactly what you said. They are not forgotten.
Right.
And So
Yeah.
it's a good thing to talk about.
It is. Well, I think I met Peter a few times, and I always just remember he seemed just like the kindest. I always felt like he just was so supportive of you. Like he was like your biggest fan, your biggest cheerleader. That was a sense I got from him with you. And I love that about him. And
he was.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, we also talked a little bit about feeling invisible as we age and what that is like. If you were speaking to someone who said that to you, gosh, I'm feeling like my presence here doesn't, like, in this situation doesn't matter, or people are looking past me, or I don't color my hair anymore, so people are offering me a walker already, like, what would you say to someone who might be feeling like this? Like, how would you encourage them in that?
I guess I try to get them to think about what they're all about. What's their primary purpose? What gets them up in the morning? And kind of go back to the importance of, your self-concept. That hasn't changed. And whether or not you can force that on someone else again to see, you're probably not going to be able to do that.
Right.
But in a way, it's kind of irrelevant what they think.
Yep.
So you just have to have confidence in yourself that you're doing what you want to be doing. You're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. I love that. I absolutely love that. I think just reminding people that, you have a calling, you have a purpose, you have things that are important to you, and that you're here to do them, because aging really is a privilege, being able to, it is. And I love that encouragement. I think we need to all remember that.
Well, just the fact of sitting down with someone and paying attention to them and listening to them talk about that is one of the best gifts you can give.
Absolutely. I love that. So I like to ask every guest 2 questions as we wrap up. The first one being, what is the best thing about being in this stage of life? If you had to share something that's great about it.
I think, you can say having choices, but I think it's realizing that you have choices. I always had choices.
Yeah.
But now I know I have choices, and I can act on them, and nobody's going to stop me.
Right.
So
I love that.
That's good.
I love that. Oh, that's huge. Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking, you're right. We all have choices in how we spend our time and our resources, our energy, but to realize that you do, how powerful that is. I love that. Last question. So if you had to go back to Jane,
1.0, 2.0.
1.0, 2.0, what would you tell her about this stage? What would you let her know to encourage her?
Probably to just relax. Have a little bit more confidence in yourself. You're on the right track. It's going to work out okay.
I love that.
And frankly, my faith is you're not in charge anyway.
Right.
You're going to make some important decisions, but you're not the one in charge.
Right. Absolutely. And to rest in that, and that it's going to be okay. Yeah. I love that. Oh, Jane, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being on.
Very good. Thank you for having me.
I think everybody is going to be very blessed by this conversation. And you've just encouraged me so much, thinking as I'm kind of, I'm hitting 50 next year, and just thinking, wow, I'm excited. I'm excited for the future. I love it. Thank you so much for being on the Marvelous Middle Age Podcast.
Thank you.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please follow the show to make sure the latest episode is on your podcast feed each week. I would greatly appreciate a rating and a 5-star review on the podcast platform you're listening on. It helps others to find the show. If there are topics you'd like to have discussed on the show, please email me at themarvelousmiddleagepodcast@gmail.com. The Marvelous Middle Age Podcast is produced by Riley Mullane and is part of the Ananellis Studios Network.